Welcome to FIA Touring Cars Series 5, where Seat and Ivan Muller are the defending champions. There's a new qualifying look this season. The pressure will be on all the way through. And it's not just the regulations that have changed either. New look to Chevrolet's Challenger as the Cruise hits the tracks. And there's a shake-up in the driver lineup as well. Last year's independent winner, Sergio Hernandez, is now a factory BMW driver. And instead of penalising quick drivers, the cars are going to be penalised to allow the drivers to be the stars. We head to the exotic Morocco, the city of Marrakesh, as part of a revised 2009 calendar. So let's start with the new changes. The first we'll see will be in qualifying. All cars go into the initial 20-minute period. Then after a 5-minute turnaround, the top 10 go into a 10-minute shootout for pole. That will define the top 10 positions. And that, perhaps, will make qualifying tactics a little hard.
It's a nice concept because I think, last year just watching 5 cars driving around in one big line is difficult for people to understand. What we need is action, like Formula 1, where you have a great qualifying show and it's always pushing, and that's what I'd like to see in World Touring Cars as well.
So the two-session, the approach to qualifying will change completely. You absolutely have to try and get into the top 10 fast. Thiago Monteiro saying last year qualifying was very simple. You put on new tyres, pushed, back to the pits, new tyres, push again, sometimes 2 or 3 times, depending on how many tyres you had. This year's going to be different. When 2008, Seat dominated many of the qualifying sessions, running all the cars together with slipstreaming effects. The new format says Ivan Muller won't be able to do the slipstreaming half as easily as last year, with all the Seats running together to get good times. That's going to be very complicated with such a short period of time to play with. And why exactly is that going to be difficult? Seat's Ricard Rydell explains.
You don't know who's going to be in the top 10. Maybe it's only going to be 2 Seats or 1 Seat or 5 Seats. You don't know. And if you got helped by someone in the first 20 minutes, it means that you have to help him back. But the last 10 minutes, maybe you only get to do 1 run in qualifying. So therefore, it's a little bit difficult to know the strategy, how you should work.
And so the teams will have to think up new qualifying plans. Everybody simulated qualifying during the winter testing, and of course everybody wants to keep their plans secret. But we did manage to beat something out of Ricard at least.
We're trying to simulate what's going to happen, but it's difficult, and you might need to not use 4 new tires all the time. Like last year, you could go out with 4 new tires 3 times in the session. Maybe this year is going to be a little bit different, but no one knows exactly what's going to happen. But it's interesting with something new, and it's new for the drivers, for the teams, and also for the viewers.
One thing is for sure is that we are going to have our wits about us. The good thing about the demise of slipstreaming is that solo cars will have as much chance as everyone else, and that's got to be good news for Andy Priaulx.
Hopefully going to be better for a single car team like us to not concentrate so much on slipstreaming, but more about the ultimate lap time on your own. However, if they get to the stage in the season where 2 or 3 guys give up their best lap in the top 10 shootout for 1 driver, then that's going to be quite hard for me, to deal with, because we're just a single car team.
Well, one thing's for certain, fans and drivers alike will really have to have their wits about them with the new system. Wins, 37 podium finishes, a win at every street circuit the World Touring Car Championship has ever been to. That's not a bad history lesson, and that was all Chevy's Lachetti. But now, it's time for a new chapter. I cried to my daddy on the Chevy heads into season 5 of the World Touring Cars with a brand new car, the Cruise. It's going to be starting from the opening event in Curitiba, and like the Luchetti, Cruise has been turned from a road car to a state-of-the-art racer by the British team RML, and after months of secrecy, this is the first test in Estoril. We caught up with team boss Ray Mallock to give us the lowdown on the new Cruise.
The J300 is hugely exciting and important development for us as far as the race program with Chevrolet is concerned. We entered the World Championship with the Luchetti over 3 years ago, and we've developed that year on year, and I think it's fair to say that we've squeezed the optimum amount of performance out of the car now. The J300 gives us a whole new platform to work from, and straight away we can see the wider track, the improved aerodynamics are going to give us an even better race car.
Well, like its road car cousin, the new Cruise Racer is a major step forward for Chevrolet with a distinctive and upmarket look, and hopefully that'll be replicated by on-track performance. Now the first signs are good, as Nicola Larini and Alain Menu explain. Nick says the project's really building a brand new car from front to back. It was built obviously as a road car, not for racing, so a lot of development required. Luchetti has been a very strong car at the end of a 4-year period, so being as competitive as that with the new car might not be so easy. Alan says the car's less nervous, that makes it a little easier to drive. You can go over the curbs better, and in fact any bumps on the track it rides better, so this point of view could definitely be an advantage. But on the other hand, the characteristics might harm us on tracks with fast direction changes. For instance, the fast chicanes at Porto, the street circuits, generally demand a lot of instant reaction and agility. Technically speaking, says Nick, we're not far away from the old model because we've got the same engine, so we know that. Big change is a new gearbox. We're working now on differentials as well and setting up shock absorbers. Exactly the sort of testing you do in any winter season before the racing starts.
Stiamo lavorando sulle sospensioni come normalmente si fa in inverno prima della stagione.
So many tracks in the calendar have long straights and fast ones as well, so you're really penalised if you can't get good top speed, and I think the weak point of the car might possibly be its top speed, but if we manage to improve that, then hopefully everything will be very positive.
Le point faible de la voiture risque d'être ceci, donc si on peut améliorer la vitesse de pointe, ce sera très positif.
L'affidabilità ce l'abbiamo.
Well, reliability won't be a problem. We're just tuning the setup at the moment to get a good basis for the season. I'm very confident that we've got all the essentials in this car to do well. Winning the first race, well, that'll be too much of an ask, I think, but maybe a spot on the podium, yeah, I think we've got a good chance of that.
Veramente troppo, però di fare un podio credo che possiamo farlo.
And we'll find out this weekend in Curitiba just where the Cruise is in relation to its rivals. Last year he won the Yokohama Independence Trophy in a privately run pro team BMW. This year he's a factory driver. He is, of course, Sergio Hernandez. In amongst the big boys as a fully fledged factory driver, joining Roberto Ravaglia's BMW Italia Spain outfit.
Es satisfactorio no tener un volante.
It's huge satisfaction to get a factory team seat, especially after such a good season with Pro Team last year. They were so good. We hit the big goal together, and for me, that was to win the title and take a factory team seat. Well, that means new boss will be Roberto Ravaglia, the 1987 World Touring Car Champion. And the Venetian is not only the owner of the team, but he's also the boss at the track. it's a bit like football. There are players who are good in little teams and then struggle when they arrive in big teams. But now he's got a great opportunity handed to him. He's proved he can be fast. Now he's just got to prove that he can be just as fast as that in a factory seat.
Ha dimostrato di andare forte, adesso deve dimostrare di andare forte anche in una squadra ufficiale.
And his teammate will be Alex Zanardi, and that might not be easy to deal with. Of course, your teammate is generally your biggest rival. Sergio says that Zanardi's name is known across the globe, but that's not actually a pressure for me, really. It's just a source of motivation to do my best. And as for Alex, well, what does he think of his new young teammate? I'm really happy to work with Sergio. He's a nice guy, he's a gentleman, and he's also very quick. So hopefully he'll be able to give our team an extra little boost, just like Felix did in the last couple of years. And maybe Sergio will be able to do even more. And certainly that's what we'll all be working and hoping for. So the 25-year-old from Alicante started his career in single-seaters. Now he enters his third season in the World Touring Car Championship. How does he think it's going to play out? Farfus is clearly very fast, and for me, he's really the driver to beat. Augusto, I think, is going to be the benchmark in 2009. Last year, he didn't win a lot of the time because he had accidents, but when you look at practice, he was always fast, always right at the top. And I think he's got to be my favourite to win the title. And my goal is also to battle for the World Championship, and hopefully, step by step, I think that's something I'll be able to achieve. So at least in terms of ambition, Sergio certainly deserves his place in a top team. Well, let's stay with the BMW Italia Spain outfit and have a look at Alex Zanardi's major change for this season. Is to go from the standard H-pattern 5-speed gearbox that the BMWs all race with to a sequential shifter. Well, this year we're going to use a sequential gearbox, but unfortunately we made the decision a little bit late, so choosing the right ratios to get them homologated and everything, especially if we want it to be reliable for this new development for us, is perhaps going to be difficult. Now, the technical regulations state that switching a BMW to a sequential means you get 30 kilos of extra ballast. So why do it? So, well, we look at a time with a new car with a 5-speed gearbox with new tyres, and with the H-pattern and 30 kilos less, it's a little bit quicker. But for me, it's better with a sequential because I'm doing so many other things with my hands all the time that with the hand throttle, the sequential gearbox just means that I have less to do with my hands, and that reduces the disadvantage I have to my rivals. So essentially, car weighs a little bit more, but it's less complicated to drive. And there's another bonus as well, and he's keen to exploit that too. Well, on some tracks, clearly I'm going to have an advantage even over my BMW teammates because I will always be able to use the same first gear. With the sequential gearbox, to change the gearing of the car, you change the actual gears. With the H-pattern, you can only change the differential. So if you need a longer differential, you end up with a longer first gear, and that means you're slower across the line at the start. And particularly for the standing start, I'll have an advantage over every other BMW. And if Alex's choice proves advantageous, there's just a chance that others might follow in his footsteps. So the thorny question of equalising different cars and different drivers. This year, a brand new approach. Instead of handicapping the most successful drivers individually as in the past, weight is going to be added to the most successful cars. For every model, an average time will be calculated on the basis of the fastest laps set during qualifying and racing. The fastest model gets more weight, the slowest get less. All competitors driving the same model of car will carry the same weight.
I must admit that when I first saw the calculation sheet to balance the performance, I had to read it more than once to understand it, and if I already have difficulty to understand it, I don't even want to think about strategically dealing with it to see what performance you will have after 2 races. I mean, I think we just have to start the season and drive as hard as we can and see where we are.
But if Bart's having trouble understanding it, good Lord, what are the rest of us going to do? Well, what it'll hopefully do is mean that drivers won't be able to play games sandbagging.
The idea of this concept is to make the racing more interesting for everybody, more close, even closer than it was last year. And let's hope it works. But, you know, it's a tough old championship, and there's a lot about strategy as well. What we want to see is the drivers who are fighting for the championship winning races. That's the most important thing. We want to see them at the front and not right at the back with 70 kilos in position 18, you know. That's very difficult for the fans to understand.
Now, to kick off for the first 2 events in Curitiba and Puebla, the cars won't have any weight ballast at all. Then starting from Marrakesh, ballast will be handed out and updated after every race weekend, taking the last 3 weekends into account.
I think it's a good system. I hope it's going to work also during the season. But the good is that all the Seat drivers will have the same weight, all the BMW drivers will have the same weight, and you only handicap the cars between each other, and which is going to make for a competitive season, and you will always see the fastest BMW driver at the front or the fastest Seat driver at the front.
Well, balancing performance of cars derived from standard production models is going to be very difficult. Let's hope the system works as well as it looks it might do. Well, here are our defending World Touring Car champions, Ivan Muller and his brand new toy, the 2009 Seat Leon TDI, unveiled February the 11th in Barcelona, and of course carrying that illustrious #1 plate.
To have
the #1 in the car is great satisfaction for me. It means you've done a great job during the previous season, and now for the whole year I get to carry the #1, at least for a year. Well, winning a title is one thing, defending it can be even more difficult. Just ask Andy Priaulx. So during the winter, of course, Seat has been working hard, but it hasn't always been easy, despite being based in sunny Spain. The beginning of the testing season has been really quite difficult, says Ivan, because the weather's been pretty bad. We've had a lot of rain, not very much dry running, and because the first race takes place in Brazil at the beginning of March, we had to send all the equipment by boat at the beginning of February, so that means we've had to use the spare cars to test in, and as there aren't enough cars for the drivers, we've had to share. But it's been like this for a few years, and we're used to it now, so we just get on with it. So what then is the secret of Seat's strength?
En SEAT, como equipo, trabajamos desde mi punto de vista.
As far as Jordi Genet is concerned, our real secret is we work better together as a team than anybody else because we share everything. Each driver works on a specific part or aspect of the car. The information is then circulated freely so everybody knows what everybody else is doing. And that means we can progress much faster in a single day because we're working on several different aspects at the same time. Well, the manufacturer title that they grabbed last year was Seat's main target. The drivers had to sacrifice personal ambition for that. Is it going to be the same in 2009? Well, in fact, we had a meeting yesterday, and team orders are going to remain the same as they were last year. The main goal is to win the manufacturer's title. If then we can take the driver's title too, then we'll try and grab that as well. So team boss Jaime Puig will again have to manage 5 drivers, 5 big egos with one main target. It's never an easy job. All right, from the beginning, of course, all the drivers start at the same ground zero. The manufacturer's title will be the target. Mid-season, we might have to decide to help 1 or 2 drivers, but you can't set a plan right at the very beginning. That depends what happens in qualifying, how the car goes, what happens with regard to our competitors on the different tracks, the characteristics of the various drivers. But certainly by mid-season or probably 2/3 of the way through, we will be looking at helping one driver. So it's going to be important to rack up points nice and early to win the internal battle. Certainly the first race is going to be the most important. The 2, 3, 4 first races maybe. From the moment one or two of us get a little advantage ahead of the others in terms of points, then everybody will have to follow in line, and that's where the internal competition to score the biggest number of points is going to start from the day one in Curitiba. Seat dominated last year, winning both drivers and manufacturers' titles, and to re-establish a bit more equilibrium between the different marques, the FIA has introduced some changes to the technical regs for the diesels. The air restrictor's been knocked down 1 millimetre from 35 to 34 mil, and their supercharged air pressure, the turbo boost basically, has been limited to a maximum of 2.5 bars relative, meaning relative to air pressure. With a 1 millimetre reduction in the restrictor costs us about 20 horsepower, reckons Ivan Muller, and that's quite significant on cars that don't have 500 horsepower. For an S2000 car with 300 horsepower, 20 is quite a big gap. It represents about 1/10 of a second a kilometre, so if you work that out on a racetrack like Barcelona here, that's about half a second a lap. And it'll come as no surprise that already the Seat drivers are complaining about the new regulations, but that's to be expected. It's part of the game. Nobody likes to lose power, to lose an advantage. I'm happy that we're making progress, but I am slightly worried because we're quite a long way from where we wanted to be, because the new technical regulations have come in. We're a little bit far from last year's performance still. Well, Andy Priaulx knows very well how hard it is to accept limitations like this. He also knows, though, that you've got to swallow the pill because it's better for the show.
It's very awkward when you have something that you're allowed to do taken away from you. We know at BMW that this has been the case in the past when we've worked extremely well. Then we've had to carry the extra weight or the extra penalty for that. That's a tough approach for a manufacturer to understand that, but what we want is fantastic racing for the crowds.
Well, as BMW and Chevrolet have had to do in the past, Seat engineers have had to work hard during the winter trying to claw back some of the performance loss, and that's how Ricardo Rydell sees it too.
We're going to lose some power, and it will do a little bit of a difference to the lap time. We're going to be a little bit slower than last year, but hopefully we can find some of that back in all the development and testing we do during the winter.
So how fast exactly is the new Seat Leon TDI going to be? Well, we'll find out this weekend in Curitiba for the first time. So here's the entry list for the opening round. Ivan Muller starts with number 1, heading the 5-car Seat Army. Andy Priaulx, number 6, with Jörg Müller and Augusto Farfus again for BMW Team Germany. Alex Nardi, Sergio Hernandez in the Italia-Spain outfit. Huff, Menu, Larini, no change at Chevrolet, but Lada's 3 cars are now fully fledged factory entries. They'll start with the old 110, changing to the Prioria from Porto onwards. Tom Coronel is joined in the Sunred team by Brit Tom Boardman in the independence category. So in 2009, the World Touring Car Championship ventures to a brand new continent, to Africa, to Morocco, and to the streets of Marrakesh. So we'll head to America, Africa, Europe and Asia throughout the weekend. And the Marrakesh World Touring Car event will be the first international car race in Morocco since the 1958 Grand Prix in Casablanca. Augusto Farfus says we've seen the layout of the track and it looks pretty fast, but apart from that we don't know anything about what the tarmac's like, how wide the road are, you know, the topography, whether it goes up or down, whether it's flat. So it's going to be a new challenge for everybody, and it's good to visit new countries, to new continents, take the show somewhere new. Well, Well, it's a new track this year compared to last, but in fact it's just a welcome return. The Portuguese track of Porto alternating with Estoril. So we're back in another city centre street track right on the beach in Portugal's northern second city. And it was a huge crowd pleaser in 2007. So here's the full calendar. We kick off this weekend in Curitiba, then in a fortnight's time they head to Mexico. Then, the beginning of May, Marrakesh, on the streets of Po, then Valencia in Spain. From Brno to the streets of Porto, Brands Hatch will be the British round before we end up the European campaign at Oschersleben and Imola, then again heading to Japan and Macau. So, join myself and John Cleland for all the action live from the opening round in Curitiba this weekend. We kick off with the first new style qualifying session. That'll be on Saturday at 2000 CET. That is 9 in the evening Central European time. On Sunday, morning warm-up and both races live. Till then, from me, goodbye for now.